mngane ngiyokhalela bani nayi iphimbo lami liphindaphinde entabeni ngithi inyawo zami ngibeleze kulomhlaba nemsini ngifunana noxolo ey'nganweni kukhalisa mayemaye emzini kamkhulu umkhondolo usekhaya.
Sawubona to you, sawubona to yours. From one great spirit to another. Igama lami uThulani Malevu. Welcome to Ubizo Daily. Today, we step into an uncomfortable truth. A truth many families were never taught to question. A truth wrapped in graduation gowns, student debt, family pride, and borrowed dreams. Today we ask, why are so many highly educated people unemployed? Why are graduates leaving institutions with qualifications but no ownership whatsoever? And why are millions being trained for jobs that do not exist inside economies that they do not control? And why was the degree sold as the highest form of intelligence? Today, we expose one of modern society's most successful illusions. The degree was sold as salvation. For generations, many Alkebulan households were told, go to school, get your degree, everything will be fine. Parents, therefore, sacrificed everything. Grandparents sold livestock, families pooled resources, entire households invested hope into one graduate. And this came from love, from survival, from believing that education would break historical poverty that was man-made. But many graduated discovered something devastating. The promise was incomplete. Let's speak about being educated, but educated for whose economy? Let us ask a dangerous question. Educated for what? For whose market? For whose economy? For whose corporations? For whose institutions? Many educational systems prepare students to become employees inside structures that they don't own. Banks that they don't control. I mean, I've got experience of work as a premier banker. Corporations that they did not build. Governments they often cannot influence. And when those systems shrink, graduates are left holding qualifications with no economic ecosystem to absorb them. That is structural dependency. Great Spirit, let's speak about debt as modern psychological control. You see, in many parts of the world, people leave university carrying debt, massive debt. And debt changes behavior. This is one thing I've just come to see having worked in the financial industry. It forces compliance. It delays entrepreneurship. It delays land ownership. It delays family building. It makes people desperate for employment, and desperation weakens negotiating power. This is one thing I've always advocated for, and I'll forever continue for this. I would rather starve than to work for a corporation that I have no control over whatsoever. Because I understand this deeply. Desperation weakens negotiating power. This system often produces highly educated workers who are too financially burdened to challenge the system itself. Why? Think about that for a second. Great Spirit, intelligence was narrowly defined. Let's speak about that. This may be one of the biggest lies. Academic intelligence was elevated above all else. But where is the equal respect for farmers, for builders, for plumbers, for mechanics, coders without degrees, traditional healers, artists, architects of community systems, land developers, inventors? Where? Many forms of genius were intentionally undervalued because colonial economies needed labor hierarchy. And many gifted people were made to feel inferior simply because their intelligence looked different. All my life I've had to fight because of this. There's a clip of an iconic woman, I can't remember who said, All my life I've had to fight. Personally, all my life I've had to fight. My intelligence does not fit into systems that were never made for me. I speak as Utulani Malevu. And just before we part ways, let's speak about degrees without purpose and how they become traps. A degree in itself is not evil. Education itself is not the enemy. The real issue is pursuing qualifications without strategic purpose, without ownership, without understanding market realities, without entrepreneurship, without nation building vision, without practical application. Degrees without direction create educated frustration, and frustration becomes generational disappointment. And in closing, Great Spirit, let's speak about reclaiming education for liberation. We need engineers who build alkebulan infrastructures, lawyers who protect land, doctors who expand healthcare access, teachers who rewrite curricula. We need farmers who restore food sovereignty, technologists who build alkebulan systems. We need entrepreneurs who create employment. And we need young people to understand that your degree should be a tool, not an identity, not a prison, not a substitute for imagination, not proof of superiority. Real education should expand sovereignty, not dependency. So today, ask yourself, were you educated to build freedom or merely survive inside systems built by others, and by others meaning thieves? Because a nation full of graduates without ownership remains economically vulnerable. I don't want that for my generation. And the future belongs to those brave enough to transform education from obedience into liberation. Until next time, okuhle, umusa, kanye nokukhanya ekuhambeni wakho. Light, mercy, and blessings on your path. Ubizo Daily. The call continues.